Friday Night Funkin has travelled down a dark path, one that has completely ruined our interest in the game. I must preface this by saying that this entire video was created out of love for Friday Night Funkin and its community, hoping one day it can flourish and become a much more enjoyable experience for everyone and not turn away people with similar thoughts to us. As it stands, we no longer enjoy the game, and this video will explain it all. There was once a time where I watched and played almost every single Friday Night Funkin mod that was uploaded on Getcoin's channel. To say I was invested in this game was an understatement. This is entirely why I started a YouTube channel, to share all of my energy with an audience of other dedicated fans. My friends felt the same too and offered lots of help to assist in the creation of these videos. Eventually I slowed down, checking out mods here and there, and then it stopped almost entirely. My main motivation for watching / playing mods was because I was either waiting months for one to drop or I wanted to do a review on it. Being a review channel, you need to know a lot about the thing you're talking about to give an opinion that isn't completely disregardable. And since we don't know much about the current community or even what mods are out at the moment, our opinions continue to grow old and outdated, perhaps not reflecting the modern state of the game. Regardless, this video will cover everything that ruined the game's enjoyment for us and problems that continue to plague the community. To help balance out our viewpoints, I've invited a friend who is more knowledgeable on both Friday Night Funkin's community and history. Say hello, Ellie Syndicate.
Hey there, I am the Syndicate in question. Alongside my status as a sort of Friday Night Funkin' historian, God please let me be the only one, I've also worked on my own code-based projects before and have a decent understanding of the process that goes into making a semi-functional video game, especially one that's condensed enough to be put onto Newgrounds. I have a YouTube channel of my own that doesn't have jack shit on it, but I'm getting there eventually. I've also got a Newgrounds of my own where I post subpar art of random shit I think of drawing. I'd also like to serve as a disclaimer saying this isn't a video intended to tell you that you can enjoy Friday Night Funkin' or anything related to it. This is simply a video on why there won't be any more FNF based content on this channel that I, under normal circumstances, have no affiliation with.
This video has many sections, so be sure to check the timestamps in the description. Okay, huge elephant in the room, Week 8. I thought about making this video in January, and as you can see, it's January of a completely different year. Here's me thinking Week 8 would actually be out by the time we start making this video, but nope! It's still delayed? As of writing this, it's been over a whole year. Was it really meant to be ready when they said it would be? They're pulling a Rob Top Games on us here, and for those not educated on what that means, it means saying shit is coming soon and not dropping it for an extended period of time. And now because so much time has passed, you keep adding more content. Only difference being Rob Top actually teases a lot about the update and frequently communicates. Wow, I actually can't believe that Geometry Dash 2.2 came up before both this video and Week 8. Really, this entire section writes itself, but regardless, let's continue. It should be more than obvious why a lack of releases for the original source material of a game is bad, especially a game like Friday Night Funkin', which is not community driven, it's community carried. Not only is the original game the spawn of it all and a massive source of inspiration, it's also extremely appreciated and people desperately want that new update to drop. This update isn't just a new week with 3 songs and that's it. The update is bringing Erect mode, which will have new art and songs for every single currently existing week. There's also more techie stuff like the dev needing set reports to the game for the full-ass game, making the mod folder actually work, and redoing the code so it's not a bundle of spaghetti. I know what you're thinking, that's not a year's worth of work, and you'd be right, but we also need to factor in the game not having an active dev team for a while and how they aren't just slaves who stare at a computer for 16 hours a day. They have lives too, I think.
No. Hi, I'm jumping in to say that this requires a lot more detail than just what was mentioned. NinjaMuffin99 has made posts on Newgrounds about his recent endeavors, including but not limited to going to a Newgrounds meetup in Toronto, Canada, installing Friday Night Funkin' onto a Wendy's kiosk, visiting the Newgrounds offices in Pennsylvania, hosting a game jam, and shitposting on the FNF Kickstarter logs. Now, of course, this does not detail the full development process, as that's something very much behind the scenes and not every game developer talks about the process live 24/7, and it'd be unfair to criticize the Funkin' team for that when other game developers like Team Cherry have stayed silent about projects like Silksong. Alongside this, Phantom Arcade has gone on record to say that the team was reworking the entire game from the ground up, seeing as the original game's code was not the best, to put it nicely, and it's entirely possible that they decided against posting a week update to focus more on building the rest of the game. We're not sure, but at the same time they've not been open about it, which has led to speculation that they've scammed people. I will say though, Tom Fulp still seems to back the project, and seeing his track record with previous games from Newgrounds he's had a part in, like those produced by the Behemoth, it's entirely possible that he's seeing development updates that we aren't. Only time will tell though.
Anyway, I think we get why this is a problem. The longer the update is delayed, one of 3 things can happen. The hype builds to an extremely high level and people are disappointed when the expectations are not met, the hype dies entirely and nobody gives a shit when it drops, or the hype is somehow worth it and everybody is happy, which, let's be real, is the least likely. How do we solve this problem? Releasing the update probably, but as we know, that's not an option. Nobody wants a crappy, rushed and unfinished update, so one way to mitigate the issue is by giving us news on release, of which we got fuck all. Now I'll give credit where credit is due. We did get some sneak peeks and some updates here and there, especially recently, but holy balls is the silence painful. The devs drop in every few months and say, hey, here's what's going on, then vanish from the universe again. This is kind of scary in and of itself, because what if the reason why we haven't seen too much from the update is because there isn't that much to show, and by showing more, not much is left to desire. This kind of counteracts my previous point of Week 8 not just being 3 new songs, but it becomes a much more valid claim when you consider how long it's been since the promised release date. To sum it all up, the lack of Week 8 causes a hype train that could either crash into a wall, derail, or arrive safely and everyone is happy. If I had to take a guess though, the train is crashing straight into a wall and people are going to be upset having waited so long for not that much content. I hope I'm completely wrong and our expectations are blown out of the water, but I'm not too keen on that happening. There is another issue however, and that's the mod developers using their creativity to be inventive. It should be more than obvious by now that the game's mod community is not only its greatest help but also its worst hindrance. I'm not blaming the mod creators at all here. All I'm saying is, mods continue to one-up themselves by adding all sorts of wacky shit, and the longer this goes on, the more the devs have to one-up the original game. Let's see. Death notes?
Done.
More than just 4 keys?
Done.
Mod charts?
Done.
Mid-song events?
Yep. Done.
More complex art styles and music changes and whatever?
Done, for fuck's sake.
Now, if Week 8 actually released when it was supposed to, this wouldn't have really been much of a problem. Sure, mods were still advanced back then, but Week 8 would have just been another slice of the cake. Now that we've seen it a million times, Week 8 is going to be a small slice of that cake that I'm already full from eating. I can appreciate it, sure, but I'm not exactly the most excited for more cake. Maybe if the devs stopped fucking around trying to port Friday Night Funkin' onto a Wendy's kiosk, we would have something by now, but who knows. That last part was kind of a joke. I understand that game development takes time and it's not as simple as people make it out to be, but you have to acknowledge the fact that it's getting a little ridiculous. Saying the devs scammed 2 million is a bit weird, but can you really blame the people who genuinely believe that when you look at the current state of the game? You know, there was once a time where similar mods could actually stand out from one another. Madness Combat mods are probably the biggest example of this. All it took was Bambud's original Tricky mod to spark a whole new wave of Madcom fans doing something fresh with the Madness Combat IP. So many insane mods featuring all of the different Madcom characters with banger songs and unique takes on the art. This as a result boosted the popularity of the original series and did nothing but good for both Friday Night Funkin' and Madness Combat. Also, I wish Bambud the best in life. It's sad to see the new Tricky mod will probably never release, but I understand why he would want to leave the internet. Back to what I said about similar mods standing out. I'm not saying mods nowadays can't, but with the community getting larger, it's invited tons of people to just shovel out mindless copy-paste garbage of the same bullshit, which is what leads us to
creepypasta content in general. Yeah, that's right, I'm taking over this section as the Friday Night Funny expert. Creepypasta content has, to put it nicely, taken over the FNF mod scene as of late. Mods like Sonic.exe, Wednesday's Infidelity, Mario's Monday Night Massacre, Darkness Takeover, Undying Phoenix, and it seems that the community has hit such a dry spell that they're even resorting to Thomas the Tank Engine creepypastas as a mod source. These mods have effort put into them, but it feels less out of passion and more out of a quick attempt at fame. People saw the fame that the original Sonic.exe mod brought to different people and started making their own creepypastas for a chance at 5 seconds of fame. I heavily doubt it's out of passion, because this is what happened with another game franchise, Five Nights at Freddy's. People made fan games just for a chance in the spotlight, resulting in some of the most low-quality slop I've ever seen. Stuff that might even rival Pyro Live. There's so many mods about Sonic.exe, Suicide Mouse, Pibby, and more. It's to the point where mods with original characters in it are being ignored or overlooked in the favor of the next bloody-eyed hedgehog.
Which is bullshit! I technically did a whole video on this. I get it, the familiarity of an existing IP is cool, and also easy to explore with nothing or not much new to learn. With how extensive Friday Night Funkin' mods have gotten, getting into a mod with original characters and story can feel like joining a whole new mini fandom. But this very issue flushes out a great deal of creativity. I'm not saying you can't create a masterpiece with an existing IP. Many of the best mods in this entire game are from existing IPs, but Originality is such a nice breath of fresh air and excellent for a community like this one. We're not going to skip past the slip and slide mouse phase of the game where there were like 40 different mods based on this creepypasta that looked the exact fucking same. You know, this is all reminding me of something, and it's...
Alright. Let's take a break for a second. There's been a lot of negativity directed towards Friday Night Funkin' throughout the course of the video, and that's definitely not fair. So I'm going to take the pilot seat again for a bit to deviate from the subject for a second. Let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think I really need to say what Sonic is. If you've existed for the past few decades, you've definitely heard of everyone's favorite blue blur. A hedgehog capable of breaking the sound barrier with his incredible speed, accompanied by a cast of other strong characters like Knuckles the Echidna, someone who's rougher than the rest of them, best of them, tougher than leather, Hatter, Miles Tails Prower, a two-tailed fox capable of flight, Amy Rose, Sonic's hammer-wielding hammer-headed love interest, Shadow the Hedgehog, a character meant to be the ultimate life form to rival Sonic, Dr. Ivo Robotnik, a mad scientist driven to conquest planet Mobius for the intent of capitalizing. You get the idea. Now, I bet you're probably wondering, why is there an entire hedgehog posting segment in the video? Sure, he's had a bit of a resurgence in popularity because people are adoring modern Sonic content like Mania, Origins, Frontiers, Prime, the movies, the list could go on. But this video is about Friday Night Funkin'. What's the hedgehog doing here? Well, because we needed a little positivity before we could dive back into the nightmare that is Friday Night Funkin', and unfortunately everyone's favorite blue blur contributes to the game's problems. Now, listen, I'm no Sonic fan, but I may or may not be a Sonic fan, so I think I have some sort of say in how to detect when there's too much pandering going on to Sonic fans. And I've gotta say, Friday Night Funkin' fan content is trying to bring in Sonic fans in droves. Aside from the Sonic creepypasta mods we mentioned, there's an absurd amount of Sonic fan content in Friday Night Funkin', which on its own isn't a problem, but it appears very overwhelming with how much there is. Dorkly Sonic Swagged Up versus Metal Sonic Stardust Speedway, Tails Gets Trolled, the list goes on. That list goes on even longer when you mention mods that aren't centered around Sonic but still feature him in various ways. Hotline 024, FNF Secret Histories, Mario Bros, Funk Mix Deluxe, I could go on. There's nothing wrong with any of these mods, and I quite enjoy a lot of them quite a bit, and I mean no shade to anyone involved in the making of them. That being said, there's an entire section of the Friday Night Funkin' mod Wikipedia dedicated solely to Sega-based mods, practically dominated by Sonic and Company. And again, there's nothing wrong with it at all, but eventually it gets to a point where you've made more than there ever needed to be and your ideas are overlapping with everyone else's. There's more than one mod with the entire concept being centered around fighting Metal Sonic on Stardust Speedway. They aren't directly plagiarizing one another, nor am I accusing them of such, but other people are because they don't know which came first. Eventually people get bored of talking about Sonic and Friday Night Funkin', and it's honestly upsetting how it went from everyone collectively agreeing Sonic content can be okay to everyone shitting on it again because of how overdone it is for the sake of getting people's attention, which doesn't work anymore unless it's a big name mod like Fatal Files or Undying Phoenix. Both good mods that show a lot of promise but are unfortunately thrown into the same category as every other Sonic mod simply because it features some iteration of Sonic.
I am the god of all of your fears. The age of consent is 18 years.
I'm going to start off this section with referring to one of the most notable parts of the Friday Night Funkin' community. One that's so prevalent it's been not only mocked to death by outsiders and insiders alike, but also has been the source of a year-long perpetuated false allegation of pedophilia and grooming that was only disproven once commentary YouTubers came in and began making videos going on to as long as 3.5 hours of compiled evidence. But of course, in typical Friday Night Funkin' commentary YouTuber fashion, I'm getting ahead of myself. For those who have problems with it, I'd like to place a disclaimer on this section of the video. If you cannot handle discussion of child predators in a civilized manner, you'd best skip over to the next part about the other miscellaneous problems. Let's start with the actual problem, folks. For starters, one of the first and most notable incidents was with content creator and mod maker Amor Ultra, creator of the mod versus Bob and Bosip. As a creator, he was seen and well respected before allegations of abusing his development team. These allegations were, for some reason, overlooked until December 2021, when allegations came to light that he was having very disgusting conversations with multiple minors, even referring to a 15-year-old as his sex slave. He's been outcasted and reportedly not seen since, but it's entirely possible he's lurking, waiting for people to forget about him to attempt a comeback of sorts, since this is allegedly repeated behavior, as he reportedly did the same thing during his time in the Geometry Dash community, although take that with a grain of salt, as I cannot find a source for that. However, it seems as of late he's planning to return with an extended absence for therapy. Now personally, I wouldn't like to force my opinion on anyone else here, but if you ask for my personal opinion, I feel like after referring to a teenager as a sex slave, stalking people, and much more, I think it's for the best that he stays away from his platform. He was not the first, nor the last, and unfortunately definitely not the worst, however. In October of 2021, a mod about the Mouse AVI creepypasta was released by amateur artist and mod developer The Maze titled Sunday Nights. The mod itself was very bare bones and was one of the first mods to use the Psych engine, aside from the otherwise popular at the time Cade engine. The mod itself was simple and, despite the subject matter, mostly harmless until an update adding in strobing light effects was added in with no warning or way to disable it, allegedly hospitalizing someone. The maze apologized for this, but shortly afterwards, as with Amor Ultra, was exposed for having pedophilic conversations with minors. Multiple minors. Alongside this, he allowed minors into a channel of fat fetish, which he openly, honest to God, referred to as the chunk chat. He attempted to take a break and return with American Dad Pibby mod concepts. On his own, the maze is a rabbit hole that I could go on for hours about, but YouTube commentator Toastify already did that, so go watch his videos on it if you want further research onto that rabbit hole that is the maze. And now, for the part everyone was probably expecting, and the subsection that will take the longest out of the rest of the subsections, Revio 3. Out of an abyss of predators in the FNF community, Revi is one of few exceptions, having been falsely accused of pedophilia and having pedophilic conversations with minors for over a year. In reality, she was a victim of manipulation from people she considered close enough friends to have erotic roleplay with, who used that against her to try to get people to shun her. The initial allegations themselves featured screenshots, but screenshots that were not the pedophilic conversations she was accused of, just roleplay. No explicit photos were shared, no exchange of location or other information akin to it, no direct exploitation at all. It almost took a full year before anyone considered the remote possibility that she was innocent, only with the help of YouTubers Toastify and Gamerio, both of which have released videos discussing the situation about how Revi was framed by the development team of versus Sonic.exe. But at this point, it's too little too late. Revi's name was already slandered for over a year, and people left the community and blocked it out of their minds, still convinced that she's a predator. Some of the people who perpetuated these allegations were exposed to be predators themselves. But after all this was said and done, Revi simply said she wanted nothing to do with Friday Night Funkin' or its community, and listed specific characters she no longer wants association with, which from what I've seen has mostly been respected, but I'll need to fact check that. At the end of the day, Revi's name was at least cleared, which is good, but a lot of people who push these allegations against her still have a platform. I won't name names to prevent witch hunting, however, there is one name I'd like to mention. Rightburst. To Rightburst? Go fuck yourself. You plagiarized Revi's character to create your own, continued to slander her name for a full year, and insisted she was still a monster even after her innocence was proven, only to cave once everyone was pointing the finger and calling you out for deliberately slandering someone's name, so you got control over a Friday Night Funkin' mod about a hedgehog fan story made by a predator. And now it's confirmed that you yourself had some pretty questionable conversations with minors, and apparently allegedly did crack. Absolutely vile excuse of a human, but I'm of no ground to properly say anything myself based on personal experience. Instead, I'll quote what Revi said in regards to him on her Newgrounds page. I am typically a patient person, not as such with this individual. Everything he has done has added up to create mountains of slander and lies. He ruined the executable community irreparably and helped cause a year-long drought and war that made everything worse. He never wanted resolution. His version of resolution is everyone remaining below him as his name ascends through the work of others. As I previously called him, a parasite. Only fools think things to be resolved, and only seek to excuse his behavior. Good riddance. It's clearer than ever before that Rightburst was not a good person. I'd be surprised if people continued to support him, but honestly, who cares? Dude clearly only cared about himself and did his best to sustain a constantly crumbling reputation. I suppose the nuclear option is better than no option at all, though. I couldn't find any updates on the maze, but feel free to make any contributions you have regarding them in the comments.
Yeah, bad stuff happens in this community. If I had a penny for every horrible person in this community, I'd be a millionaire, and I don't count because I've left the community.
What?
I honestly don't know what else I could add. This is just some of the bad shit that happens within this community. The people actively whittling out these bad apples is amazing, but said bad apples start a lot of chaos in the community, and having bad people exposed constantly is just exhausting. Unfortunately, another factor that isn't really controllable is the children within this community. Children, yay! We all love these snot-nosed brats invading the community of a game which is not for kids. If you've been living under a rock and somehow don't realize that Friday Night Funkin' is not for kids, you need to open your eyes just a little bit wider. This game at first glance looks relatively kid-friendly. It's colourful, bubbly, has a wacky cartoon art style, but just one closer look and you'll realize the more adult themes. The literal concept of the game is that this midget with blue balls is trying to impress his girlfriend by out-rapping people, like her father or celestial entities, so that he can shag her. When the devs made the wonderful decision to add dialogue to the game, they made Senpai drop the greatest line in cinematic history, and Tankman's voice acting in week 7 is poetically vulgar.
Look who it is, your sexually ambiguous, angry little friend. Don't you have a school to shoot up? There's one way to settle this. Let's rock, you little cunt. You little cunts.
This doesn't include the modding community, which cranks up the sexual nature to 137%. You know, the child invasion might explain why there are so many creepypasta mods. When I was a kid, I was a huge fan of Sonic.exe before realizing the game isn't scary and the writing is as well crafted as Garten of Ban 2. The children have also spawned tons of cringe shit, like a whole host of garbage mods, Friday Night Funkin' TikTok, and the unholy knife circle of hell YouTube kids content. There isn't really a solution to this problem. Deplorable human beings just get cancelled and kicked out the community, but you can't kick children out of the community. After all, they did nothing wrong, and there's also far too many of them. Friday Night Funkin' is a rather unique rhythm game from an artistic standpoint. Despite being a standard 4-key scroller, it manages to be very unique in a visual way, with colourful dancing characters or Lovecraftian horrors. Another thing is the music. The music is custom tailored to the character in question, and the vocals line up perfectly with the notes being hit. I think this can cause some issues at the high end of play because a difficult chart means a fast sounding song, and you have to find a way to make the song not sound like high BPM babble. I suppose this is more of a producer skill issue though. After all, look at Versus Camellia. So let's talk about Friday Night Funkin's replayability now. You might think, hang on a minute, I replay mods all the time. And I believe you, I did too. Keyword did. The replayability of mods is in a very strange position for multiple reasons. One is how most of the mods are very individual and unique from one another. Compare that to a bog standard rhythm game like Quaver, where every song you play is just a 4-key scroller with a different JPEG in the background. Look at all these different FNF songs. Now look at all these different Quaver songs. Finding a new mod in FNF is fun and unique, and with new mods constantly improving and refining the fundamentals of the game, older mods can eventually seem less interesting. Compare that to Quaver, which is all purely about the gaming experience. You're probably responding with, well actually I go back and play old FNF mods all the time, and I believe you, which is why I'm bringing up my next point. File sizes. I can have like 100 songs on Quaver and that would only be like 500 megabytes or less, but if I have 33 FNF mods, my solid state drive is gasping for air. Hell, even some mods are 500 megabytes. If you want to replay all of your favorite mods, you either let your storage get ravaged by the file sizes or re-download them after you deleted them for storage space. Unless you're some PC mega nerd with a 4TB hard drive. Friday Night Funkin's spaghetti code is one of the reasons to blame for this. There are many examples of games with hundreds of assets and a marginally smaller file size than some mods out there. I guess you can make Friday Night Funkin' an online game where the assets are stored on a cloud server, but this removes the game's offline playability and is probably not even optimal in the first place. Friday Night Funkin' just requires a lot of assets to be Friday Night Funkin'. Strip that away and the game loses its epithet, becoming another average 4-key scroller. These are the reasons why I believe the game fails to deliver on the rhythm game aspect side of things. Friday Night Funkin's own uniqueness is its own crutch as well. I completely respect the idea of the game and how much creativity is spawned because of its uniqueness, but one of the reasons why I was turned away from this game is because of how it fails in some areas to deliver a good rhythm gaming experience. I'm sure this isn't the same for everybody, and maybe only applies to the die-hard rhythm gamers, but regardless, it's still an issue that can further contribute to Friday Night Funkin's downfall, as it did to my interest in the game. If I could have one wish, it would be for Friday Night Funkin' to flourish. That's a lie, unlimited money. But seriously, I really do hope this game and its community can greatly improve. If you actually enjoy the current state of Friday Night Funkin' and where it's going, then that's perfectly fine. Just know the sky is falling, God is dead, and you are not safe. This game is wonderful and has given many creative people their time to shine, so seeing it end up like this is pretty upsetting.
To sum it up into one word, Friday Night Funkin' has just become disappointing. The game devs managed to have this lightning in a bottle situation where they had the fandom spaced by a chokehold, yet because of a lack of, well, anything, the game and its fandom has really turned into a sludge of nothing, with anything to look forward to seeming to get further and further away with each passing mention of the game. To be fairly honest, I fell out of being into the game myself before it started declining by itself, but I was there to continue my support and see where things went, which seemed to be nowhere. I guess after all this time, there is that little bit of hope that does hang about in the back of my skull, and I do like to play a couple mods here and there, but it's just not like it used to be. Phantom Arcade really lived up to the first part of their name and really ghosted everyone after they took the money, huh?
Speaking from the heart, as someone who used to be an avid FNF fan to the point where in previous drafts of the script I willingly titled myself as such, knowing the negative connotations that came with it, it's become disheartening to see the state of the community. It feels the only goals of this Kickstarter Kickstarter were overambitious, but they've already showed promise and were backed by Newgrounds, so people kept holding on for hope. And while that hope is gone for myself and many others, I can certainly understand why people are hoping for the original game to finally get the week update they've been waiting for. As for those who say they're in it for the community, I have to honestly ask how. The community strained the life from FNF and is the direct cause of what has made people lose so much hope. I honestly, sincerely hope this game gets finished, but I hope the community goes silent until then. As for my future, I'll likely just go on to do my own thing, but the future always likes to pull some tomfoolery, so maybe I don't even know. In the meantime, I've been Ellie, and it's been nice.
Some of you might be wondering what's going to happen to this channel, and to be completely honest, I don't know. I'm not going to be making Friday Night Funkin' content anymore, and I don't even know what I could make content on, to be honest. If I ever find something to make, I'll definitely start uploading again, maybe on my second channel. Check out this channel to see my upcoming work on the Friday Night Funkin' Iceberg, of which will be my last work on this game. Huge thanks to all who supported my short-lived run within this community. It was super cool to see tons of people liking and commenting on the vids. Until next time, peace from me, Foam, and Snazzles.